Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Okay. Um, we've had some weird weather, but that's to be expected. Yeah, let's see if you have video on this?
I left the camera downstairs.
Oh, okay. You see me?
Yeah, you're coming
Uh,
in a little quite clear.
uh, okay. So it's been pretty exciting around here with the women Hawkeye basketball team. That's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's not over yet.
No, now they play tomorrow night against UConn, so that'll be interesting. Um, just been working down here on reconfiguring LCC um, and other stuff. But one of the big assumptions, two big things I had to change. One was I needed to let cats or program control the turnouts and to lock them out, and I hadn't provided for that.
Hmm.
So uh, because I had push buttons that um, would change the turnouts, but I couldn't lock them out from locally from a person. Um, just walking up, pushing the button.
Hmm.
Then the second thing was in the programming of LCC, I um, had included CTC held on and decided that wasn't where it needed to be because I would assume cats would do that, would create a event that says, okay, on this control point, we're going to lock up uh, this signals and the turnout. So I wanted to get rid of all that. And the advantage was that now when I look at JMRI tables, my turnouts tell me what they would be said had I not uh, did the CTC held.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, and I ended up going back through and using um, the towers to generate the signals, and then I used the signal node to add the CTC held on and off to the actual physical light. So I've got two segments. I've got uh, the towers tell JMRI what position, what aspect the signal should show, and then the signals node actually uh, turns the LEDs, the signal lights on and off.
Hmm.
And the advantage to that is using the towers for the logic, I can create a lot more signals than I don't physically have. And it's a lot easier to troubleshoot, which is what I'm finding out.
Hmm.
Because LCC is not easy to go back and change. Once you go in and enter stuff, um, it's if you make a mistake, it's a pain in the ass to go back and change stuff. You basically have to take a text file and tell it to restore, and you can tell it to restore certain lines or certain logic cells, wipe them out clean, then you start over again. And it's easy to run out of logic cells.
Hmm.
there's only 32 per node. So I don't know, as time goes on, things will probably get easier with the LCC, but boy, it's been slow coming around. Our circuit says some new boards out, but I think like we talked last time, I'm not going to invest in new boards. I've got about all the boards I thought I would need for what I want to do, and leave it at that. So you're not you're not headed for the Rocky Mountain Train Show?
I've got an operating session on Saturday afternoon. So I could on Sunday or not. I'm not sure what the weather's gonna be like.
Yeah, that it's been really cold, really well for this time of year. It's been pretty windy and pretty wet. Last year was so dry we didn't get a whole lot of moisture. Now
Mhm.
this year my sump pump's been running quite often. It's making up for the rain we didn't get last year.
Yeah, we got it's been mixed because we'd go for nice weather and then we'd get a couple of snowstorms and nice weather. It's nice today. We finally hit 70 yesterday, but we've had a couple days of nice warm weather. And but I think Saturday we're supposed to get it's supposed to drop down the 50s. We're supposed to get some precip.
Yeah, I saw there's a rock slide east of Moffett Tunnel that trapped maybe the Winter Park train, and Amtrak couldn't make it.
Oh, I
They had
hadn't
to
heard.
they had to back down the hill to Union Station.
I saw a video that said Amtrak backing through Big Ten Curve, but I didn't know it was going all the way back to Union Station.
Yeah, because well, I assumed that I think they canceled it, so they backed it all the way to Union Station and got people off and either bust them or just canceled that Amtrak.
Wow.
So, because the rock slide had covered the tracks there east of Moffett Tunnel. Boy, they've certainly had their share. Amtrak's had their share of problems. Man, I don't know how many times this winter with the snow in Donner's Pass, and they were always canceling trains. And then they hit, there's accidents where they hit cars or vehicles on the track, and wow, what a mess that they've had. Anyway, found something new on my lock sound decoders. There's a volume mute function.
Oh,
So if like the phone rings and you want to mute the decoders, you press that function key. Well, turns out that function key mutes it, and then the second press it changes the CV values for the volume. And you press it again, it changes CV volumes for the volume again.
hmm.
So I think you get you got off, no sound, then you got lower sound, then you get 6 steps. Well, then so each time you press it, it changes the CV so that next time you start the decoder up, it's going to be louder or quieter than when you had programmed it on the test track.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was times I couldn't figure out what was going on because I use that audio meter, decibel meter, and it would seem like the volume would change, and I'd go back and reset it, and then it change again because I was using that mute volume function.
So it doesn't time out or anything. It's like after you start the sequence, you have to go through it before.
No, you have you turn it off. and the volume comes back, but it comes back at a different volume. It is
Yeah.
my understanding. Now, I haven't had time to play with it yet. This is just something that came up on the groups IO that I found interesting. Because in the past, I'd just press the function key, it muted, and then I'd release the function key and it'd go back to normal. But I didn't do, sometimes I might have done a second press and then release. And then it's that second press and release that would change the CV settings for the volume.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, for what it's worth, there's
Yeah.
there's there's always something new in this. I think that's probably why I keeps me interested in model railroading.
Yep.
Yeah. You still spend a lot of time on cats.
Um, I've had other stuff going on. I'm in the midst of trying to fix a couple of things, and I've got some designs down. Now it's just a matter of thinking through it. It seems like it takes a lot longer to come up with a good solution than it used to. Sometimes you got to put something down and walk away from it, and a couple of days
Yeah.
later say, "Oh, here's a better way of doing something."
Yeah. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with the answer.
That's not good.
Nah, nah. Yeah. This layout command control is pretty intense.
Yeah.
At least for me, it is. There's just not a lot of tools. Bob Richardson has been working on developing some more tools. There's just a lot of information. And man, if you don't document something, you can get lost pretty fast.
Yeah, well, it's still in its infancy. It's going to take it a while before it matures and people
Yeah.
get all the procedures and stuff down.
Yeah. Well, it's like people still want to run DC locomotives.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. You see on the groups.io people and on Facebook people want to do the old wiring where you can wire it for DC and then throw a toggle switch and run DCC and
Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. You doing anything with your own layout?
No, I got thinking about again this morning a little bit about there's one place I thought I could save some space and actually improve it if I had a single crossover, and it was basic where you've got a yard lead coming out. It's where the yard lead and the switching lead and the yard tracks and the entrance and exit and all that come together. And a
Yeah.
lot of people use double switches or double
Well,
slips. I
yeah.
nah, I've had too much trouble with double slips. So I looked at using a scissors instead, and that's a little bit bigger, but it would fit in about the same space as a single crossover. And if you get rid of the single crossover, then you don't have to do a sawback in order to take things in and out of the yard and stuff like that. So I was thinking about that, but boy, those little scissor switches are expensive.
Yeah. Remind me what a scissor switch is.
Okay, um, you got two parallel tracks, and you got four turnouts,
Yeah. Okay.
and they all cross in one point.
Oh, you're talking about the diamond and with a diamond in between the four turnouts.
Yeah,
That's the scissors.
that's that's what it's sometimes called.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Those double slip switches. Um, yeah, I would think that'd be a pain to maintain those. And I say slip, I'm talking about where you come in from a thrown turnout position, then you can immediately go straight through or go on another on the different. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining it very well.
No, no, I think you got it right.
Yeah, I've always you would see them in passenger terminals because space was so limited,
Yes.
but you wouldn't see them in Minneapolis.
Nah.
Nah, yeah,
No, the problem is they are useful in the sense of because they're so compact and they fit, but
yeah,
most people, don't know that they work backwards. You throw the point on the place you're coming in to set where you exit because they kind of overlap in,
oh,
in how they work. And and the only way that most people can handle them is you got to have something on the control panel that says, A to B, B to C, and flip it that way. So if you got a manual one, um, then you have to be able to visually see it and follow the rails, just to make sure you got the both ends set right.
yeah. That would be, yeah. You could do it with two toggle switches, but it'd be
Yeah,
kind of a pain.
yeah,
And
you can
plus,
with
go ahead.
yeah, but the catch is with the two toggle switches, you got to know which end to throw. And
Yeah,
like I say, they tend to work backwards.
but plus, if you want the points or the frog wire, do you have two frogs
Yeah.
that you got to deal with? I would think you possibility of getting a lot of shorts and other stuff
Oh,
with the,
absolutely. And
yeah,
anytime you get short, that's usually hard on your equipment.
yeah, yeah. That's why I use those PSX circuit breakers for every module
Yeah, yeah,
to isolate, keep the NEC Power Pro 5 from shorting out.
yeah, yeah,
So, what brand are you using? Pico?
yeah,
Yeah, I use them for the HO, and I think they're really well built.
yeah.
Turnout. I'm real happy with those. I sold Darren all the Atlas ones I purchased originally. He got a really good deal on those because he used to tell me he can buy them at dealer cost, and he probably can anyway. I didn't know what I was going to do with my head. Maybe 40 or 50 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I sold them to him. He's a pretty good guy.
Yep, yep. Well, the Pico, what's nice about Pico N scale is they have both code 55 and code 80 rails, but they plug together. And the reason they do that is because Pico they take the code 80 rail and they put a ridge on the bottom, on the lower piece of the web. And then they take the code 80 rail and they basically make the tie thicker up to that. So you've got 55 showing above the tie, but it's a code 80 rail. So the things are almost indestructible trying to get the ties off and stuff like that there because the rails are buried actually in the ties, not just held on by uh,
Oh,
the tie plates and spike
yeah.
heads.
Well, your code 80 would be 80 thousandths of an inch high.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like code 83 would be 83 thousandths in HO scale.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
But like I say, their expenses. I was looking and Pico the uh the scissor switches. I just was just checking the Walter's website and they're out of stock, but they're like $180 for a scissor switch.
yeah. Trade Midwest Modelers in Kansas City.
Yeah,
I bought Pico track from them. They seem to do a fairly decent price and stuff. $180. Wow.
yeah. So I've debated, well, I could get some fast tracks and try building my own and stuff like that.
It'll cost you that much for the template.
Yeah, for the jigs and stuff. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We actually had I don't think they do a scissors. I know they'll do single turnouts, and I
yeah.
think they've got a double slip. I'm not sure. We had some, but unfortunately in the in scale group I was in, and unfortunately they were in a guy's basement, and when the Marshall fire went through, we lost all that stuff.
Oh wow, wow. That's too bad.
Yeah, I think we had a dozen modules in his basement, and we lost all of those, and I say we lost the jigs and other stuff, like stanchions and ropes and things like that for shows. It was a
Wow.
total disaster.
You've got enough moisture now. You guys not gonna have to worry about dryness.
Um, I think we're at about roughly at about annual averages for snow pack and stuff like that. But at the same time, it'll change so fast. All we need are a couple, several really dry, windy days, and it just sucks the moisture right out of the ground. So
Yeah.
we're good for now. But I think the big concern is if we don't keep a steady supply of moisture going, then what's going to happen is we'll get the spring growth and everything's going to dry out, and there's going to be all that fuel sitting on top
Oh,
of the earth waiting
yeah.
to burn.
Because plant life's gonna grow, and then you're gonna go in a drought, then it's gonna turn, hazardous on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the danger.
Well, you got any trips coming up this summer?
Um, Not this summer. We're Patton wants to go to either the MCOR convention, and that's in Wichita. It's your region.
Oh,
No,
oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry. No, it's in Grand Island.
yeah. It's in Grant. Yeah, and I'd thought about that because it's easy to get. Well, it's still an 8 hour drive
Yeah,
for me.
for us too.
Yeah, yeah. I'd thought about that one going to.
And the other possibility then is to go to uh the Rocky Mountain Region Convention, which I think is the week before, but that's in Salt Lake City. So that's a
Oh,
possibility.
yeah. Hmm.
But the worst one we got coming, or the big one we got coming, is October. Liz's family's having a reunion in Eureka Springs, Arkansas,
Yeah, yeah,
and she wants to combine it with our 50th wedding anniversary. So I don't think I would be able to get out of that one.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're gonna go somewhere else on the 50th, or that is the trip
I
for the
think
50th?
that will be the trip.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I see Ken's logged on. How you doing, Ken?
Oh,
Probably just getting his stuff all set up. Um,
yeah.
we had some bad news come up in that we got Rocky up coming up the first part of May, and one of the layout owners passed away on us on April 1st.
Wow.
So they're scrambling to try to figure out how to fill in for his layout. He was, if I remember right, I think he was in his 80s, but pneumonia got him.
Yeah, that's a tough way to go.
Yep. Well, Ken, looks like you're
Mhm.
unmuted now.
Yep. Yes,
What?
I finally had to see that my window was asking a question. I had to answer it before it listened to my unmute.
Yeah, we saw that too. It's being recorded. Are you okay with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I didn't notice that was sitting down there right away and said, oh, that's what it's waiting for.
Yep.
Yeah. When I realized, oh, it's actually that time frame. Well, I'll see if anybody's still there. My time has been keeping me busy.
Good.
Is basically last fall and this spring, I became a more than full-time college professor,
Oh,
meaning I've been carrying about a class and a half more than what normal load is. But it's all techie stuff. As it is, tomorrow we've got an open house in the morning with some of the other area high schools showing up. And then on Saturday, it's a quote public event, though they've got something like 3,000 RSVPs from public that is planning to stop by. And that event had been basically about 500 a year for the last couple of years. So that's a sizable change.
yeah. Is this for what, a rural club?
No, this is it's like I say, it's community college,
Okay.
and like I say, open house for showing off and to talk directly to, well, we're expecting the Saturday is going to be mostly parents, but that's kind of the more useful side.
Hmm.
Though we've been getting a big uptick in the oh wait, let's see. I've heard different words for it, but basically those who took a break in learning and then decided maybe I need to come back and get some other learning.
Hmm.
So we'll see what it's like. Yeah, my big was I got lucky. Thanksgiving hit just at the right moment when NC had sent me one of their new command stations, and I was able to do the magic in JMRI because his new the PH5 system, it externally looks almost the same, except the fact that it's got the USB on the front rather than the 9-pin serial. But internally, it's a completely different memory map.
Hmm.
All the same bits, but just they all moved.
Yeah.
And that actually was one of those things where, well, when we had added the power cap, we had kind of, okay, took a simple way out, and that simple way wasn't going to split for a third time. So I had to kind of go back and rework a fair bit of other stuff. But now it's in a much better state for if we've got to do this again, it's not going to be that hard.
Hmm. Now, does JMRI support the new command station?
Oh yeah, yeah. Basically, I had it, and it would have been in the timing worked out where it was too close to the December release to put it in that, so it was right in the first cut of the test release in January. So yes, it's supported now.
Yeah, Ken, did you also redo for JMRI, did you also redo the Pro Cab to the connection?
Um, expand a little bit, and then I'll tell you, just so I know what you're talking about. You
Okay,
meaning
well,
the show cabs feature, or
no, the Pro Cab, how it communicates with JMRI. Did any of that get changed?
Pro Cab or Power Cab?
No, I'm talking about the 2 amp Pro Cab.
Oh,
The
okay, the Power Cab. Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. The
power.
self-contained, that's the Power Cab.
Okay.
Not directly. Um, there was a couple of things where when I was fixing up the general how we talked to the different versions got improved, but nothing, well, let's just say nothing, or maybe one or two very minor things intentionally, where when I was fixing up the other stuff, I said, oh, that should do it this way. So very, very little in that one.
Okay, because on my power cab behind me with JMRI, uh, it doesn't seem, and I've got the latest 5.7.5
Okay.
JMRI. It seems like it doesn't find when the power's on, I can't turn power on and off from JMRI to the Pro Cab, but I haven't had time
Well,
to mess with that.
of course, realistically, NC doesn't really have a power on and off that is really simply a power on and off. It's kind of a trick of going into the programming mode back that turns off the track layout,
Okay.
you know. So it's not like it's kind of an indirect. And now that we're talking about it, I seem to remember there was also some issue where it was indirect, but it was also a little bit different in the power cab than it was in the regular command stations. So at the moment that isn't in top of my memory as to what was the difference.
Yeah, I was just, it's not a big deal because I use it
Yeah.
just to program and I don't run stuff with it. It's just hooked up to program.
Yeah, because like Digitrax, there it actually has the concept of power on and off for the track,
Yeah.
and NC didn't have the exact same need for the feature, so he never really built an exact match like that. And Jamrai kind of hacked a little to get close.
Have you got that new node, LCC node from RR Circuits? That one with
Which one?
the new logic?
Oh yeah. I've been working on it and using it and giving some of the feedback, which was then feeding back into how they were doing some of the redesign and also helping with um oh they say so much schoolwork, some of this stuff have to dredge it up. I think it was Dave Sand that was figuring out how to quickly make an editor screen that worked better with the Tower Q with the new logic design rather than the classic logic cells.
Yeah. I
Because the whole idea there was the logic cells was very limited in how much muscle you could put in there in the thought. And the new design gives a much more flexible set of logic. He basically stole it from it was one of the PLC vendors from Europe. I have to go back and look at my notes, but what was funny is it's like, oh, they're using that. I don't know if it was Toshiba or who I know. Well, it wouldn't have been Europe, but it was one of the big, uh, industrial controls people had defined a fairly simple text language to this, to encompass logic functions. And so far, we're thinking that it packs a lot more. You can do a lot more in the same memory space because it wasn't the execution time that was our big limitation. It was how much storage it took.
Yeah.
And this kind of really packs it in.
I've got
But as far
10.
as anything you've done before, yeah, it's quite different.
Okay, because I've got 10 towers and 6 signals, and I've got just about every logic cell filled. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The queue lets you add a lot. I've used it. Let's see, with a friend, we have a 4-segment Fremo module, and we had built it up with signals using the LCC, but we wanted to add MSS to the endpoint so it would interact with the other Fremo modules that have signaling. So Dick very nicely made a prototype board for how to interface to the MSS. And then I took a tower, or the tower Q nodes, and wrote the logic in it so it could kind of translate between the MSS on the end and the internal LCC. And we took it to the Springfield Mass Show in January, and it worked quite well.
Good, good. The new nodes, they still have the same track receiver circuits and track transmitter circuits, and
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's
So the way it interoperates is the same.
okay. So it's
It's
like
just
a
how you
tower.
describe the logic.
Okay, so it's basically a tower with different logic in it.
Yeah,
Or-
it's a tower because it doesn't have specialized signal driving
Okay,
circuits, and it just has the two 10-pin ports, so you can put whichever pair of daughter boards you want to put in.
yeah, okay. So
So in
he's
that
left.
respect, yes.
He's left that alone then. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you still, and which is really one of the nice things he did in his design. Because he's got a number of nicely specialized tower boards that are useful in different circumstances, and just quick little ribbon, and there you go.
Yeah. There it certainly has its advantages. Yeah.
Now, Steve, remind me, which part of the country are you in?
Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, we're waiting for the girls basketball game tomorrow evening. Caitlin Clark and all that. Iowa City's about 20 minutes south of Maine, the
Okay.
University of Iowa. So yeah.
Yeah, if I remember right, you're a little bit north of the path of the eclipse.
Yeah, I've got some guys that are going to drive down to Northwest Arkansas, and they're hoping to see it down there. I don't know what the
Yeah.
weather's going to do, but it won't be much of one where I'm at. But yeah, they're going down.
We're going to be right in the middle of it.
Oh, you will. And where are
Oh
you
yeah,
at?
yeah. Well, I'm in Syracuse, New York,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
if I stayed in town, you're getting about maybe 30 seconds of totality because you're kind of near the edge. But we've got a place just north about an hour, and that puts us just about on the center line.
Wow.
And we're going to try a few things with like the telescope, and actually throw the cell phone on the telescope into a Zoom session, and then let other monitors and people tie into that.
Oh, sure. That'd be cool. Yeah.
We'll see how much fun that works out. But I've got the special filters on the telescope, so well, while we're waiting for the eclipse, we can look for sunspots and stuff.
Well,
And then when it gets
yeah.
close, then we can look at other things.
Where are they predicting the weather's going to be Monday?
That keeps changing so fast, which, well, that's typical for around here. But when I got home, and grabbed dinner, my wife told me that, well, the latest she saw was, yes, it's supposed to be actually fairly clear.
Good.
Right now, there's been this one storm that's been raining or snowing for like the last day and a half, and is kind of forecasted to go on for at least another day and a half. And everything east of us is looking at 3 inches to 2 feet of snow, and we're just going to be wet.
Yeah, it's been cold and windy here, and usually our weather heads up to you. Goes up through Erie, Pennsylvania, and then on up there. Monday it's supposed to be clouds and sunshine, breezy in the afternoon. That's what they're saying here.
Yep, you might get glimpses, you might not. The timing's going to be one of those things. the biggest thing we're looking at is the state is forecasting some rather ridiculous traffic projections. Everywhere is completely sold out on motel rooms.
Wow.
And the issue is, okay, how many extra people are going to be trying to go somewhere, and how is it going to get messed up? Because we're looking at the fact that we know about 8 or 9 different ways to get from where we are to where we want to be, but we're shooting to do that pretty early in the morning, so that we can be settled in well before noon and possibly even like 9 or 10 in the morning just to play it safe.
Yeah. Yeah. When's a good time to visit up there? I've got friends that have a cabin on the St. Lawrence Seaway. He grew up in Binghamton, New York,
Okay.
and he and I were talking,
Which
and
town along the river?
I was afraid you'd ask me that. I'd have to look it up. He's actually, his cabin's on peninsula, and you can see the Canadian side across, and that there's a
Oh,
big bridge west of him. Anyway, I'd have to look it
yeah.
up.
Well, if it's near one of the two bridges, you're talking either Alexandria Bay, Clinton area, or you're talking Ogdensburg area.
Yeah, I think he's probably mentioned both of those. He
Yeah.
inherited the cabin from his folks who, they've had it for a long, long time, and then his folks passed away, and he and his
Yeah.
sibling.
I would generally say that from about mid-June through the 1st of October
Oh, even that
is
late?
pretty safe.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you got Lake Ontario, big body of water, and if it gets warmed up, kind of moderates the temperatures for a while. And it's gotten to where people have done pretty good, reliable, fall colors and not really got very messy.
Well, he
But
mentioned that. He
before
mentioned
June 1st,
oh,
you know, it's the water's definitely way cold and the temperature and the rest of the weather is iffy.
oh, yeah. He'd mentioned that after Labor Day, some of the restaurants closed down because
That's no, that is completely true that a lot of that type of stuff, the so-called tourist stuff, for the most
is
part, doesn't get rolling until oh mid-June because that's when they can finally get all the college kids, into jobs and trained up to run stuff. But then they're heading back to school. So usually most of them they stretch it to Labor Day, but that's about as far as they can go. Some of the places stay open longer, but that's where, yeah, different things will start, rolling it up.
well. I always wanted to go up there. I was on a motorcycle a couple of years ago up at Albany and got stuck on the freeway there, the accident. So we sat there for hours waiting for the accident to get cleared up. And we'd followed a hurricane up the East Coast, so it rained every day. And we finally got Ticonderoga and said we're going home. We'd had enough of the rain and the cold.
Yeah,
But
I remember one of my National Guard duties. We went up to Fort Drum. It was bright, hot, and sunny for the drive up. The first day while we're getting reorganized before going to the field, it was that. By the evening, when we got to the field, and until the morning that we came back in, which was about 12 days later, it rained almost every day. And I
yeah,
ended up with a set of long johns, actually a couple of sets that had turned green by the end because it leached whatever dyes out of the fatigues into them.
wow.
And it took about 3-4 years before those started looking at least off white again rather than pale green.
Yeah. But I'd like to see it up there during the fall because I've always heard it's really pretty, quite scenic. Up
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah. Like I say, and that you start seeing the first hints second week of September. And depending on how wet or dry the year had been and numerous other things will change how fast or how slow the colors change. But generally by, Columbus Day is about peak, if not sometimes before. And by the end of end of October, it's like, yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah. Rodney, you still
So,
there?
Still here.
Okay.
yeah.
I was
You
gonna
got
say,
anything new
Ken,
coming in on cats or
um, let me answer that in one moment. I was gonna say, Ken, your problem probably is not gonna be getting to your viewing spot, but getting home. We went up
what?
to Wyoming for the eclipse several years ago. And people kind of dribbled in the morning and they all
Yep.
left. And I-25 south was basically a parking lot from about 4 in the afternoon to about 2 o'clock in the morning. And so,
Yeah, we're planning on taking the RV up there and being fairly gracious and flexible as to when we leave because we figure it's kind of like a rock concert or a big football thing. You get people dribbling in early and they might be tailgating and doing all this other stuff. But after the event's over, everybody wants to leave at the same time. And yeah, that's exactly what we're expecting. And what's funny is talking to people, and some people are going, oh, how bad can it be? And well, stories like yours tell how bad it can be.
yeah, I could not believe it. It was just crawling all the way home. We left the park where we watched the eclipse. I think it was like 4 in the afternoon, and we were one of the last ones to leave. And we didn't get home back in Colorado till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah. And normally that would, so you took, let's see, 6, 8, 10 hours to do what normally would have been how long?
an hour.
An hour.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll tell Heather because she lived out in Fort Collins for about 15 years, so she's familiar with the area.
yeah. And it was in our case there weren't that many there aren't that many towns along the I-25 in Wyoming. And
Yep.
every one, you'd say, well, guy used the restroom, and there'd be a line that was, half hour long, just use the restroom. And then the Department of Transportation, Wyoming, shut down the rest stop. You're going, well, why did they shut down the rest stop? So people, you were forced to use the exits if you could find one.
Well, part of it is those rest stops and everything, they're only built and designed for a certain type of capacity. And well, when they're full, they're full. I mean, that sounds like a bad thing to say, but that's I I I'd have to say that wouldn't be too much of a surprise to me
And
that
yeah,
that's what drove them to do that.
yeah, that kind of makes sense. So
But
anyway, what's new in cats? I'm working on mostly right now on bug fixes. Um, the one that I'm working on has caught my attention the most is when I did route stacking, I just used a single stack. And if
mm,
you had stuff later in the stack, they all had to wait for the first one to clear out before you could pop up and activate the next ones, which didn't make
mhm.
a lot of sense if you're waiting on an event, say on the left-hand side of the layout, you've got something stacked on the right hand, they don't overlap any, why not let the
Oh,
right-hand side one run? And I came up with actually a really nice little scheme for how to do that. which I think was pretty cool. I didn't have stack or control point or anything like that. I was able to use basically bit vectors for each stacked item. And that's been
Mhm.
in testing on several layouts around here, and I'm ready to let it go.
Yeah.
And then we found out, the guys in La Crosse found out that some had broken in terms of, well, okay, well, first of all, I didn't handle exact turnouts very well, where you got two sensors, one for each
Right.
side. And, you think, well, okay, it's if I'm moving the points from one side to the other, you're going to get the break before you get the make, right? No. Generally, that's true. But, as a computer guy, you understand that
It's neither guaranteed.
no, and
No.
particularly in something like NCE, where it's kind of like a polled system, where
Yep.
if both events happen within the same polling interval, and it all
Yep.
depends on which one JMI looks at first is the one you're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, there a good example would be, yeah, I'd expect to be quite different if both sensors were on the same AIU card,
Yes.
or is it AUI, whichever. Um, I'd expect them to yeah, they would show up together, but it's actually worse if they're on two different cards because of which might come in which polling cycle of the command bus. And yeah, that could get interesting.
So
I
anyway,
mean, either way, both set or both not set, it's, an unstable condition, and you basically say, yeah, that's not any good for anybody. I mean, that's what the prototypes do.
yep. So
And
I'm working on a solution for that, and then another one is a rather obscure feature that the guys in La Crosse liked was that, if the fuel crew throws a turnout when they don't have authority, they want to throw it right back on them, basically override
mhm,
it. And I had that
yeah,
working after a fashion, and something broke. And I think I've got another solution for that. That in itself has a whole bunch of subtle implications to it. So
oh
it's
yeah,
the two turnout things are what I'm working on right now. And next thing I do is
mhm,
figure out how to update everything for the. I'm still using Log4j, and I need to work it up to the newer logging library.
yep.
So that's what's new here.
Okay.
Is that a big layout up at La Crosse?
It's actually several guys. They run.
Yeah, it's a cluster.
Yeah, they run river rails.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one local layout I'd like to get converted to cats, but first I've got to convince the owner that yes, we need to detect the occupancy of the turnout separate from everything else.
Yeah,
And he's currently he's more of a scenery person anyhow, and isn't quite as in tune to how, quality of dispatching.
yep,
Uh oh, Heather, yes, this is the Cats group, and in case Rodney, he's one of the ones that lives out in Colorado. He said when they went up to Wyoming to look at the eclipse a couple of years ago, that 1 hour drive down I-25, it took about 10 hours coming home.
So in other words, the guys prognosticating here are going off that
Yes,
data.
that's why they're saying that stuff. Because same as we expect, yeah, you get up there early in the morning, no big deal, but when the event's over, everybody's trying to go home.
yeah. What's funny about a lot of that is I'm also a ham radio operator, and I had my radio on listening to the general
Yep.
network, and you could hear the overflows. You hear somebody talking, well, yeah, we're over here and it's backing up here. And it
Mhm.
even though we were north of Cheyenne, it backed over to Laramie and it backed up east of there. but you had other people who had gone into the more unpopulated areas. They got home with no problem. They just, basically zipped across the traffic. You just had to know the roads.
Yep, yep. Yeah, my understanding are two things. That one thing that happened to a lot of people is they got into a little too remote location where it's like, yeah, if you go out in these areas, you got to remember, yeah, you're out of cell service. And if you have any type of vehicle issue, get stuck, whatever, you're on your own. That was one thing. Though they didn't have this big last time, at least that I heard. But this year around here, they're pointing out that if you have an electric only vehicle, you may very well die in place. And the state is basically making it real clear that yeah, and if we have to tow it, it's not going to be cheap. It's like normal car runs out of gas, so you can throw a can it, pour a can in 5 minutes, and that'll get them, a fair distance. You can't do
Mhm.
that with these electrics.
Yep. We were really fortunate because we were riding with a guy I'd gone to college with, and he was driving. His car was a diesel Mercedes, and I mean that thing had a range on him some like 900 miles, and he'd fill it up before we left. So we weren't worried
Yep.
about running out of fuel before we got home.
Yep. Yeah, our plan is we basically sit tight, watch the map services with where the traffic is or isn't. And once we see a path that's moving decently, then we'll decide to get moving.
Oh, Ken, my friend is at Blind Bay on the St.
At
Lawrence.
which?
Blind Bay.
Blind Bay. Okay. I'll have
Uh,
to
it's
check,
east.
check and remind my.
Well, it's east of Chippewa Bay.
Okay.
It's due north of you. You go up through Watertow, and then Alexandria Bay. Then you go
Yep.
east, and he's
You go east a little.
about 18 miles.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice area. Okay, now, yeah. And actually, in my view, it's the fact that, okay, out in the river in front of that area, there's a couple of really nice shipwrecks
Okay.
that I've dove many times. Because actually, that's one of the big beauties of the whole, the St. Lawrence is things have been hitting the bottom there plenty of times. And so there's Goose Bay.
Yep, he's
Yeah.
east of Goose Bay.
Oh, there's Chippewa Bay.
Yeah, then the next one to the east is Blind Bay.
Let's see.
Between
Because they're
Chippewa Bay and Morristown.
okay. Yep, yep, yeah. Bays get a little smaller along that section,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've done plenty of diving all over there. Yes, no, that is a pleasant area. And actually, what's nice is that from there, if you spent a day just driving from there, you can make a nice loop over through the Adirondacks and get really nice stuff about
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks before you'd get it along the river. And let's see, I can think of a number of interesting scenic rails scattered here and there. There was one of the scenic rails, they're doing a excursion for the eclipse. And needless to say, yes, it sold out very quickly.
Oh, I'll bet.
So
We've got
right.
that Canadian National steam locomotive coming down here, middle of May.
Ah,
They'll be running it down through La Crosse, that area, then down through Davenport, Quad Cities.
mhm.
I had ridden behind that locomotive back when the Southern used to run their steam specials back in the 70s. So
Mhm.
kind of looking forward to seeing that one again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how it ebbs and flows about which railroads are, supporting there's steam heritage, which
Yeah.
ones lock it up for a while, and just back and forth. um so yeah, it's
Oh yeah, and I
kind
say
of nice, at least some of it comes around for a while.
yeah, it's Canadian
I
Pacific.
I have to,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to settle for the riding scale steam. Mostly 1 inch and inch and a half scale.
Well,
So for the most part,
that's a high price
Yeah.
investment.
well, in time or money, it's kind of a either or. In some cases, yeah, your dollar investment might be pretty low, but the time investment is right off the scale.
Yeah.
And it's, the standard with the steam engine is it's not if something's broke, it's when you find what's broke. There's something already broke. Hasn't affected you yet, but it's there. Then you got to figure out how to fix it. And generally it means you've got to be able to build the replacement part.
Yeah, there's a gal
Makes it
on
a whole
YouTube.
lot easier if you can do it.
Yeah, there's a gal on YouTube that's building a small steam engine. She's a Canadian, and every Saturday she puts out an episode of what she does. She'll spend a lot of time building the smallest thing. She's really good at what she does, but boy, you're right about the time invested in building something like that.
Well, and on a lot of that stuff, you've got to spend probably 3 times the amount of time building a jig just so
Yeah.
that you can correctly build the part.
Yep. Yeah, she does. She does that. She's built a lot of jigs. I've been watching her for a couple of years now, and she's always building the jig to do something new with the metal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
guys, it's 7 o'clock. I think I'm going to call it quits.
Yep. No, that's reasonable. I'd say
Yeah.
so. Since we don't have any super duper other topics.
No. Well, enjoy Monday. Hope it goes well for you.
Yep, we'll see. Yeah, I had to come up with new material for what my Monday class was supposed to be doing. Because I kind of checked, and okay, about a third of the class would likely be impacted going one way. All of them would be impacted going home. And yeah, they all kind of agreed that doing something in lieu of being there on Monday was a good idea. Because only, I think, 2 out of 14 of them had an afternoon class.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, we'll talk sometime.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
so
Have fun,
see you guys.
everybody.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye.